Chandler Smith is not just showing up to Daytona. He is stepping into the most unforgiving fight in NASCAR. One extra car has changed the entire picture of who makes the Daytona 500. And for some teams, this could be the moment everything ends. The Daytona 500 is often introduced as NASCAR's biggest race, but that description only captures what happens on Sunday. The real story of Daytona begins much earlier, long before the grandstands fill, and long before a winner is crowned. It begins with a fight for survival. For teams without guaranteed starting positions, Daytona is not a celebration. It is an audition where only a few are accepted and the rest are sent home. Every year, the open field arrives knowing the odds are stacked against them. There are more cars than spots, there are more dreams than seats on the grid, and there is no safety net. One mistake can erase months of preparation. One wrong push can end a season before it starts. That pressure defines Speedweeks as much as the race itself. In 2026, that pressure just intensified. When Front Row Motorsports announced it would bring a third entry to Daytona, it did more than add another name to the entry list. It altered the balance of the entire open field. The team confirmed that Chandler Smith will attempt to qualify for the Daytona 500 in the number 36 Ford, and that single decision sent a clear message through the garage. This was not an extra car for experience. This was a competitive entry aimed directly at making the race. Front Row Motorsports has earned a reputation as one of the most reliable superspeedway teams in the sport. Over the years, they have learned how to survive Daytona's unique chaos. They understand the draft. They understand when to push and when to wait. They understand that patience can be just as powerful as aggression. Those lessons do not show up on a stat sheet, but they decide who makes the race and who does not. That experience matters even more in the open field, where desperation often leads to mistakes. Teams without locked-in spots feel every lap slipping away. Drivers feel the weight of sponsors, crews, and careers riding on their decisions. In that environment, discipline becomes a competitive advantage, and Front Row Motorsports has shown time and again that it possesses it. Chandler Smith's presence only strengthens that advantage. Smith enters Daytona as one of the most adaptable young drivers in NASCAR. He has raced successfully in trucks and Xfinity, learning how different cars behave in traffic and how momentum shifts across long runs. He understands how quickly situations change at superspeedways and how awareness can prevent disaster. That skill set is especially valuable in the open field, where clean air is rare and risks multiply with every restart. The open field was already crowded before the number 36 was added. Several teams arrived believing they had a realistic path into the race. That belief was not unfounded. Daytona has a history of surprises, but surprises become less likely when more capable teams enter the mix. Each additional competitive car reduces the margin for error for everyone else. Qualifying becomes more unforgiving as a result. Single-car qualifying is no longer just about raw speed. It is about execution under pressure. Drivers know that missing the mark by a fraction of a second can force them into the duels, where survival depends on cooperation and luck as much as skill. With another Front Row Motorsports Ford in the open field, that pressure multiplies. The duels themselves become battlegrounds rather than tune-up races. Drivers cannot afford to sit back and wait. They cannot trust that others will make mistakes. They must race aggressively while still protecting their cars, a balance that Daytona rarely allows. Every lane choice matters. Every drafting partner becomes a calculation. The manufacturer dynamic adds another layer to the equation. Superspeedway racing rewards numbers. The more cars working together, the easier it becomes to control lines and block runs. Ford teams already enter Daytona with strength, and adding another competitive Ford gives them additional leverage in the draft. That affects not only the open teams, but also those already locked into the field, as alliances shift and priorities change. For non-Ford teams trying to race their way in, the challenge grows steeper. They must decide whether to work with Ford drivers who may ultimately push them out, or attempt to form fragile alliances that could collapse under pressure. There are no easy answers. Every decision carries consequences. For smaller teams, this is the hardest part of Daytona. They often arrive hoping that chaos will open doors. They understand that wrecks are inevitable and that survival can sometimes be enough. But the addition of another well-prepared entry reduces the effectiveness of that strategy. Survival alone may no longer be sufficient. This is what makes the open field so brutal. It is not enough to avoid mistakes. Teams must also outperform others who are just as prepared and just as determined. Someone will execute perfectly and still miss the race. Daytona has never promised fairness. It only promises opportunity. For Chandler Smith, this attempt represents a defining moment. Daytona offers visibility unlike any other race. Making the Daytona 500 is more than a stat. It is validation. It signals readiness. It proves that a driver can handle pressure on the sport's biggest stage. Smith's approach will matter. He must balance aggression with restraint. He must trust his spotters and his instincts. He must recognize when the race is coming to him and when he needs to take control. Daytona punishes impatience, but it also punishes passivity. Front Row Motorsports understands that balance well. They are not entering this third car hoping for luck. They are entering with a plan. They expect to be competitive. They expect to be in the conversation when the final spots are decided. That expectation changes how others race around them. Drivers know which cars are dangerous. They know which teams have speed and which teams have discipline. The number 36 will not be ignored in the draft. It will be marked as a threat. That attention can be both an advantage and a burden, depending on how it is managed. As Speedweeks progress, the spotlight will remain on the stars already locked into the race. Championship contenders will dominate headlines. Media coverage will focus on familiar names. But just outside that spotlight, the open teams will be fighting a very different battle. They will be watching lap times. They will be counting cars. They will be calculating alliances. They will be planning for wrecks they hope to avoid. Every session will feel like an elimination round. The addition of the number 36 Ford ensures that this year's open field will be remembered not for who barely made it, but for who did not. It raises the standard. It removes comfort. It forces everyone to race harder and think faster. This is the reality of the Daytona 500. It is not just a race, it is a test of preparation, discipline, and nerve. It exposes weaknesses and rewards those who can adapt under pressure. When the engines fire and the cars roll onto the track, the fight for the Daytona 500 will already be underway. By the time the final open spots are decided, the story will not simply be about speed, it will be about survival. Because at Daytona, even before the green flag waves on Sunday, the race has already begun.